We've heard it before and we'll hear it again. The system is rigged and democracy is broken. At least that's the argument Lawrence Lessig is making in his bid to dramatically change the way the Electoral College does business, which is why he's created a new nonprofit aptly called Equal Votes to do just that. Lawrence Lessig, Harvard Law professor and former Democratic candidate for president, joins me now. Larry, it's good to see you.
Great to be back.
To be clear, you don't want to dump the Electoral College. You want to do something a little more modest that makes sure it's, what, one person, one vote kind of thing?
Right, exactly.
How do you do that?
The Electoral College is part of the Constitution. It's not going to be touched by the court. But the way states allocate their Electoral College votes is determined by state law. And what we're saying...
And current law is winner take all in every state except, what, Maine and Nebraska?
That's
or
right,
something? Okay.
all but 2 states.
Okay.
So what we're saying is winner take all doesn't give every voter in a state equal weight the way one person, one vote requires it. So in Massachusetts, 1 million people voted for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Their vote didn't matter at all. Across the nation, 52 million people voted. Their vote didn't matter at all. And we think that violates a fundamental principle of equality.
So, but that's exactly how we elect U.S. senators, though, is it not?
Yeah, but you're electing the senator from the state. Right? But the point is you're throwing away the votes at the state for a person who's the United States president.
Okay, so, I mean, that factually it's hard to disagree with, even if one likes the electoral system as it exists. So what's the solution? What are you proposing?
So what we're saying, we're going to bring a case in 2 states. We haven't picked the cases yet. David Boies has taken our case. But we will pick 2 states. And what we'll say is the state should allocate the votes proportionally. I think people can understand proportional allocation. So if you get 60% of the votes, you should get 60% of the electors. As opposed to the current system where you get 51% of the votes, you get 100% of the electors.
And just to be clear, individual states, as you say, well, the Constitution creates the Electoral College. Individual states decide what the rules are. Individual states could decide to do what you want to do now. Only 2 states have decided to do it that way. So your contention is that the court, a federal court, should determine that there's a constitutional obligation on the part of all the states to divide these votes up proportionally.
Exactly right. Since 1968, the court has at least 3 times explicitly said 1 person, 1 vote applies to the presidential selection system, most recently in Bush versus Gore. And the standard of Bush versus Gore applied to this case, we think makes it clear that these have to be reallocated.
But it sounds to me like you're going sort of halfway to where you want to go, which is a national popular vote. And I understand you don't want to have to amend the United States Constitution, but there's a move afoot, from what I understand, that, what, about a dozen states in D.C. or something, basically now say the electors, correct me if I'm wrong, have to vote for whoever wins the national popular vote. So there's a de facto move towards that. Why isn't that a far better solution?
It's a great solution.
So why aren't you supporting that?
I do support that.
So
absolutely.
Why are you doing this instead?
Because you've got to fight this war on as many fronts as you can. They've gotten 11 states, 165 electors. But at 165 electors, they now have to cross the very thick red line to get a whole bunch of red states to join them as well. Now, what we're trying to do is to build a movement of I want 1 million people who are committed to the idea that your vote should count equally regardless of where you are in the country. And when we have that kind of support, we will use it to support our case, and we will use it to support national popular vote.
Is the divide on the whether one supports the Electoral College as is versus this kind of reform totally a function of people doing the math and figuring out how they do under the current system versus under the Lessig system? Is that what this comes down to?
It's been framed in a partisan way. And, if in 2004 50,000 votes had switched in Ohio from Bush to Kerry, from Kerry to Bush, then Ohio would have flipped. And Kerry would have won the presidency even though he lost the popular vote. If that had happened after 2000, I guarantee you by 2008 we would have been done with the system. So people think it's a partisan issue, but it's not. You can lose as a Republican. You can lose as a Democrat.
Would Hillary Clinton have won the presidency had your system been in place?
It's not clear.
Why is it not clear?
Because it depends on what you do with the third-party votes. There were a lot of third-party votes in this case, and those wasted a whole bunch of electors. And so it depends what the states do with those electors. So if the states had said,
what do you want them to do?
Well, I think that they should be able to say that if you get if you have no plausible chance in the college, we're going to reallocate your votes to somebody who does.
Doesn't that totally fly in the face of your 1 person, 1 vote notion?
I'm glad you asked that question.
You're throwing out their votes.
No, because what we know is that if it goes into the House of Representatives, the House of Representatives is the least efficient way from one person, one vote perspective. So if you want to maximize the chance of one person, one vote, of the majority actually deciding, then a state is perfectly justified in saying, we're not going to waste our vote and throw it into the House of Representatives.
What are the odds? I mean, honestly, what are the odds in your estimation of a federal court saying that this is what is constitutionally mandated?
Now that we have David Boies on our side, it's as good as it can possibly get.
It's not just the issue, it's who your lawyer is.
That's exactly right.
Good luck.
Great
Thanks
to see
so much
you. Thank
for your
you.
time. I appreciate it.